Captain Sarah Chen pressed her back against the cold metal wall of the abandoned mining station, her breathing steady despite the chaos erupting around her. The Kralith assault force had swept through the outer colonies like a plague, their bioships leaving nothing but ash and silence in their wake. But they had made one crucial mistake when they attacked Kepler 442b. They had assumed it was just another defenseless human settlement. The emergency beacon had reached Earth 3 days ago, carrying desperate pleas for evacuation assistance. What the Kralith intercepted was exactly what humanity wanted them to hear. What they didn't detect was the second transmission, encrypted in quantum frequencies that only one group in the galaxy could decode. The message was simple: Black unit deployment authorized. Sarah's tactical display showed 12 red dots moving through the station's lower levels. The aliens were methodical, efficient, and utterly confident. Their chitinous armor gleamed under the emergency lighting as they swept each corridor with military precision. They had every right to be confident. The Kralith Empire had conquered 47 species across 12 sectors. Their warriors were bred for war, enhanced with biotechnology that made them faster and stronger than most known life forms. They had never encountered humans who fought back. "Contact in 30 seconds, whispered Marcus Rivera through the comm unit embedded in Sarah's skull. His voice carried no tension, no fear. After 8 years of operating in the deepest black sites across human space, Marcus had learned to find calm in the eye of every storm. "Chen, you're clear to engage," Sarah smiled, a predator's expression that would have chilled any human who witnessed it. But humans weren't the target today. She checked her weapon one final time, a piece of technology that officially didn't exist. The plasma rifle hummed with contained energy, its targeting system already calculating firing solutions for the approaching hostiles. The Kralith rounded the corner in perfect formation, their bio-enhanced senses scanning for threats. What they found was a lone human female, apparently cowering behind a maintenance panel. Their leader chittered something in their clicking language, probably in order to secure the prisoner for interrogation. They had learned that humans sometimes possessed useful information about defense systems and resource locations. Sarah waited until they were 5 meters away before she moved. The first Kralith warrior died before his nervous system could register the threat. Sarah's rifle spoke in a language of superheated plasma, carving through alien armor like paper. She rolled left as return fire scorched the wall where she'd been standing, her movements flowing with a grace that seemed to defy human limitations. The second warrior fell as she came up from her roll, his weapon still cycling to full charge. The third managed to fire once, the bioelectric bolt missing Sarah's head by centimeters. She put 2 rounds center mass into his thorax, watching the light fade from his compound eyes. 3 down, 9 to go, she reported, already moving toward the next choke point. Her boots made no sound on the metal decking. Every piece of her equipment had been designed for one purpose: killing efficiently in the dark spaces between stars. 20 kilometers above the planet's surface, Lieutenant Commander Jackson Torres monitored the operation from the bridge of a ship that didn't appear on any official registry. The stealth vessel Times Shadow's Edge Times hung in the void like a splinter of darkness, its exotic matter hull rendering it invisible to conventional sensors. On his screens, he watched 12 small icons representing his team as they moved through the mining station with lethal precision. "Sierra team is in position," reported Staff Sergeant Kim Park, her voice crackling through the quantum-encrypted channel. Park led the demolition specialists, the ones responsible for making sure the Kralith fleet wouldn't be returning to report their findings. "Charges are set on the primary support structure. We can bring this whole installation down in 30 seconds when you give the word." Torres nodded, though she couldn't see him. Kim Park had earned her place in the black units by walking into a Zentari fortress with nothing but demolition charges and walking out after the entire complex collapsed into a crater. The Zentari had been slavers, using human colonies as breeding stock for their arena games. They weren't slavers anymore. "Negative on the detonation," Torres replied. "We need those Kralith to see what humanity looks like when we stop pretending to be helpless." "Chen. Rivera. Status report." Sarah's voice came through first. 6 down on my end. Moving to Convergence Point Alpha. A pause filled with the sound of weapons fire. "Make that 7 down." Marcus followed up immediately, cleaning up the rear guard. They tried to flank through the maintenance tunnels. The distinctive whine of his particle beam weapon punctuated his report. "These bugs are faster than the intelligence report suggested, but they telegraph their moves. It's like they've never fought anyone who shoots back effectively." When in the fort, that assessment matched everything Torres had observed about the Kralith expansion. They were used to overwhelming primitive species with superior technology and numbers. Their tactics assumed that any resistance would crumble under the first assault. It was a reasonable assumption, considering their track record of success. But the Kralith had never encountered the products of humanity's darkest military research programs. The black units existed in the spaces that official documents couldn't acknowledge. When the Terran Federation's diplomats spoke of peace and cooperation with alien species, they weren't lying. Humanity genuinely sought peaceful relationships with their neighbors among the stars. But peace, as every student of history knew, required strength to maintain it. The strength came from men and women who volunteered to become something more than human. The enhancement process was classified beyond top secret. But the results spoke for themselves. Reflexes that operated faster than conscious thought. Muscle fibers reinforced with carbon nanotube weaving. Bone density increased to withstand forces that would shatter normal human skeletons. Neural interfaces that allowed direct communication with advanced weapon systems. They were humanity's answer to a universe that seemed designed to prey on the weak. "Torres, we have a problem," called Sergeant First Class David Kim from his Overwatch position. Kim was the team's sniper, a man who could put a round through a target's eye from 3 kilometers away in a crosswind. His voice carried the calm professionalism that came from making impossible shots under impossible conditions. "Long-range sensors are picking up movement in the Kralith fleet. Looks like they're preparing to glass the planet." Torres felt his jaw tighten. Orbital bombardment was the Kralith's standard response when ground operations became complicated. They would reduce the entire planet to molten slag rather than risk losing face to an inferior species. It was efficient, brutal, and completely in character for an empire built on the principle that might made right. "Time frame?" he asked. "Their bioships are charging their plasma projectors now. I'd say we have maybe 20 minutes before they start cooking everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius." Sarah's voice cut through the communication channel with deadly calm. "Then, we better make sure they don't get the chance." Rivera, Chen, converging on the main reactor chamber. "Kim, how many bugs are left breathing?" Thermal imaging shows 3 signatures in the reactor chamber, probably trying to activate the station's self-destruct to deny us intelligence, Marcus reported. 2 more roaming the command center, likely trying to establish communication with their fleet. Torres studied the tactical display, his enhanced mind calculating possibilities with computer-like precision. The mining station's reactor could be overloaded to create a localized electromagnetic pulse, but that would only disable the Kralith ships temporarily. They needed something more permanent. "Park, what's your assessment of the station's mining equipment?" he asked. Kim Park's laughter carried a note of anticipation that would have terrified anyone who knew her reputation. "The magnetic accelerators they use for launching ore containers?" "Torres, these things are basically mass drivers with safety limitations. Give me 10 minutes and I can remove those limitations permanently." "Do it." Chen, Rivera, secure the reactor chamber and wait for Park's signal. Kim, keep those bug ships honest with suppressing fire if they try to close the distance. David Kim's rifle was another piece of technology that officially didn't exist. The weapon used magnetic acceleration to fire projectiles at a significant percentage of light speed, delivering kinetic energy equivalent to a small nuclear warhead. From his position in the station's communication array, he had clear sightlines to the Kralith bioships as they maneuvered into bombardment formation. The first shot took the lead ship completely by surprise. The hypervelocity round punched through its organic armor like tissue paper, detonating deep within the creature's vital organs. The bioship convulsed once and went dark, its bioluminescent markings fading as death claimed the massive organism. "Scratch 1 bugboat," Kim reported with professional satisfaction. "They're scattering formation and trying to locate my position." The Kralith fleet, responded exactly as their tactical doctrine demanded. The remaining ships spread out to prevent a single weapon from engaging multiple targets, while their sensor arrays swept the planet's surface for the source of the attack. What they found was nothing. Kim's position was shielded by the station's communication equipment, and his rifle's exotic matter components made it virtually invisible to conventional sensors. But Sarah and Marcus had reached the reactor chamber, where the real work was about to begin. The three Kralith warriors inside the chamber were different from the ones they had encountered earlier. These wore heavier armor, marked with the bioluminescent patterns that indicated elite status. Their weapons were more sophisticated, charged with enough energy to punch through military-grade battle armor. They had positioned themselves with clear fields of fire covering all approaches to the reactor control systems. Sarah studied the tactical situation through her rifle's targeting system. The reactor chamber was a spherical room built around the massive fusion generator that powered the entire mining operation. Catwalks provided access to various control systems, but they also created multiple levels where defenders could establish overlapping fields of fire. It was a nightmare scenario for assault forces, which was exactly why she and Marcus had trained for scenarios just like this one. "I'll take the high road," Marcus whispered through their private channel. "Give me 30 seconds to get into position." Sarah nodded, her enhanced reflexes already calculating angles and timing. Marcus moved like a shadow, his augmented muscle fibers allowing him to climb the chamber's support struts in complete silence. His black combat suit absorbed light across multiple spectra, making him effectively invisible unless someone knew exactly where to look. The Kralith warriors maintained their positions with admirable discipline. Their compound eyes tracked constantly across potential approach routes, and their weapons remained charged and ready. They were professionals, veterans of countless planetary assaults. They had survived this long by never underestimating their opponents. Today, that wouldn't be enough. Sarah's first shot came from an impossible angle, ricocheting off 3 separate metal surfaces before finding its target. The plasma bolt struck the leftmost Kralith in the gap between his helmet and chest armor. Superheated energy, cooking his nervous system in milliseconds. His weapon discharge was purely reflexive, the bioelectric bolt going wide and scorching the reactor chamber wall. Marcus's particle beam caught the second warrior as he turned to engage Sarah's position. The weapon fired in complete silence, its coherent energy stream passing through alien armor like sunlight through glass. The Kralith warrior collapsed without making a sound. His internal organs reduced to steam. The third warrior was faster than his companions, diving behind the reactor control console as return fire filled the air where he had been standing. His weapon spoke in rapid bursts, bioelectric bolts designed to disrupt human nervous systems. Against normal human soldiers, his tactics would have been devastatingly effective. But Sarah and Marcus had stopped being normal humans the day they volunteered for the enhancement process. Sarah's enhanced nervous system processed the warrior's firing pattern in real time, calculating the precise timing of his shots. She moved between the bioelectric bolts like a dancer, each step taking her closer to the alien's position. Her rifle spoke twice, the plasma rounds carving through the control console to find the warrior hiding behind it. "Reactor chamber secure," she reported. "Park, you're clear to work your magic." Kim Park had spent the last 10 minutes performing what could only be described as inspired sabotage. The mining station's magnetic accelerators were massive devices designed to launch ore containers into stable orbits around the planet. With their safety systems removed and their power supplies overloaded, they became something entirely different. "Torres, I need you to transmit a message to the Kralith fleet," she said, her hands dancing over control systems that were now armed with enough explosive potential to crack a moon. "Tell them they have 60 seconds to withdraw from this system, or experience what human ingenuity looks like when we stop playing defense." Torres smiled, the expression carrying all the warmth of deep space. "Gladly. Open channel to Kralith command vessel." The response came immediately, a series of chittering sounds that the translation software rendered as arrogant dismissal. The Kralith commander apparently found the idea of human threats amusing. His bioships began moving into final bombardment position, their plasma projectors glowing with barely contained energy. Kim Park checked her calculations one final time. The magnetic accelerators were now aligned with the Kralith fleet's position. Their power output increased beyond any reasonable safety margin. The ore containers in the launch tubes had been replaced with solid tungsten rods, each one carrying enough kinetic energy to shatter a capital ship. "Humanity sends its regards," she whispered, and pressed the firing stud. The tungsten rods accelerated to 20% of light speed in the first kilometer of their journey. They crossed the distance to the Kralith fleet in 3.7 seconds, each impact delivering the equivalent energy of a nuclear weapon. The bioships never had time to register the incoming threat. One moment they were preparing to reduce a planet to ash. The next, they were expanding clouds of superheated plasma. "All targets eliminated," Kim reported with professional satisfaction. "I don't think they'll be filing any reports about what happened here." Torres studied the tactical display, watching the last traces of the Kralith fleet dissipate into cosmic dust. The mining station's reactor had been shut down safely, and his team was already preparing for extraction. In 6 hours, the Time's Shadow's Edge Times would be back in deep space, carrying them toward their next assignment. But the Kralith Empire would remember what had happened here. Word would spread through their command structure about the humans who fought back. The ones who turned their overwhelming advantage into a death trap. Other species would hear the stories too. Whispered rumors about the humans who appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. The galaxy was vast, filled with predators who preyed on the weak and helpless. But humanity was no longer weak, and they were definitely not helpless. In the dark spaces between stars, the black units moved like shadows, carrying a simple message to anyone who threatened human colonies. Earth's children were under protection now, and that protection had very sharp teeth. Admiral Vex's High of the Kralith Empire stood before the holographic display in his flagship's command center, his forearms gesturing in patterns that conveyed barely contained rage. The images floating before him showed the complete destruction of Strike Fleet Tertius, 12 bioships reduced to nothing more than trace elements scattered across the void. The mining station they had been sent to cleanse still orbited the human colony world, its magnetic accelerators now cold and silent. "Explain to me," Vex High chittered in the clicking language of his species, "how an entire strike fleet was eliminated by what our intelligence reported as a defenseless mining operation." The intelligence officer, a smaller Kralith with the pale coloring that marked him as one of the cerebral castes, trembled slightly as he accessed the data streams. "Admiral, the energy signatures are unprecedented. Our sensor logs indicate weapons fire with yield characteristics unlike anything in our databases. The projectile velocities recorded just before fleet destruction exceeded anything we believed the humans capable of producing." Vex's High's compound eyes focused on the tactical reconstruction. The attack had come from multiple vectors simultaneously, coordinated with a precision that spoke of military units far beyond anything they had encountered in human space. The final strike, the one that had obliterated his bioships, had been delivered by what appeared to be mining equipment modified into a weapon of devastating power. "What do we know about human military capabilities?" he demanded. "Admiral, our expansion protocols are based on 47 successful conquests. In every case, the target species possessed military forces that operated according to predictable patterns. Centralized command structures, conventional weapons technology, defensive strategies focused on protecting population centers." The intelligence officer's voice carried a note of uncertainty that was highly unusual for his caste. "The humans appear to operate differently." That was an understatement of cosmic proportions. 3 months had passed since the destruction of Strike Fleet Tertius, and reports were filtering in from across the frontier zones that painted a picture of human military capability that defied everything the Kralith understood about warfare. Their expansion fleets, which had rolled over dozens of species without significant resistance, were encountering something entirely new. Humans who fought back with a ferocity that bordered on the insane. The latest reports came from the Rigel sector, where Expansion Fleet Prime had attempted to secure a cluster of asteroid mining facilities. The humans had evacuated the civilian population as expected, but instead of abandoning the facilities, they had defended them with units that seemed to appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. The engagement had lasted 6 hours and resulted in 70% casualties among the Kralith forces. "Show me the Rigel incident recordings," Vex-High ordered. The holographic display shifted to show the asteroid field where the battle had taken place. Kralith bioships moved in standard formation, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent communication patterns. The asteroids appeared lifeless, their mining facilities dark and apparently abandoned. The fleet moved closer, preparing to secure the installations for Kralith use. The attack began without warning. Missiles emerged from hidden launch tubes carved into the asteroids themselves, their exotic matter warheads invisible to Kralith sensors until the moment of impact. The bioship's defensive systems, evolved to counter energy weapons and conventional projectiles, proved utterly inadequate against weapons that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. But that was only the beginning. As the Kralith fleet regrouped to respond to the missile attack, human warriors appeared among them. They moved through space in individual assault suits that defied every law of physics the Kralith understood. The suits seemed to bend light around themselves, making their occupants virtually invisible until they struck. Each warrior carried weapons that fired coherent beams of energy capable of cutting through bioship armor like tissue paper. One human, a female whose suit bore no identifying marks, carved through the escort screen of a Kralith dreadnought in less than 3 minutes. Her assault craft moved with impossible agility, dodging bioelectric cannon fire while returning precise shots that found every weak point in the organic vessel's defenses. When she reached the dreadnought itself, she attached some kind of device to its hull and disappeared into the void. The dreadnought exploded 30 seconds later, taking half the Kralith fleet with it. "Pause the recording," Vex-High commanded. His mind, enhanced with biomechanical implants that increased cognitive processing by orders of magnitude, struggled to understand what he had witnessed. Analysis of the human assault craft's maneuvering characteristics. "Admiral, the craft exceeded 37 G-forces during several recorded maneuvers. No known biological entity should be able to survive such acceleration, let alone maintain combat effectiveness while experiencing it." The intelligence officer's tone had shifted from uncertain to genuinely concerned. "We have confirmed similar performance characteristics from human units across 14 separate engagement zones." The implications were staggering. The Kralith Empire's expansion had been built on the assumption that they possessed superior biotechnology. Their warriors were bred and enhanced for combat, their reflexes artificially accelerated, their strength augmented far beyond baseline biological norms. They had never encountered a species that could match their enhancements, let alone exceed them. But these humans were operating at performance levels that suggested enhancement technologies far in advance of anything the Kralith had developed. "What do we know about human enhancement programs?" Vex-High asked. "Admiral, our intelligence networks have found no evidence of widespread human enhancement. Their civilian populations appear to be baseline biological entities. Their regular military forces, while competent, operate within normal parameters for their species." The intelligence officer paused, accessing additional data streams. "However, there have been unconfirmed reports of human units that appear to operate outside normal command structures." Vex-High felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. In his 3 centuries of military service, he had learned to recognize the signs of an opponent who understood warfare at levels beyond conventional thinking. The humans weren't simply defending their territory. They were conducting asymmetric operations designed to maximize psychological impact while minimizing their own resource expenditure. It was the strategy of a species that had learned to fight wars they couldn't afford to lose. "Bring up the intelligence files on human military organization," he ordered. The holographic display shifted to show the known structure of human military forces. The Terran Federation Navy operated conventional starships with predictable tactical doctrines. Their ground forces used standard small unit tactics adapted for various planetary environments. Their overall strategy appeared to be defensive in nature, focused on protecting their colonial territories rather than expanding aggressively. But buried in the intelligence reports were references to units that didn't fit the established patterns. Combat formations that appeared and disappeared without leaving traces in human military databases. Weapons systems that showed up in engagement recordings but never appeared in captured human equipment manifests. personnel who operated with capabilities far beyond normal human baselines. The humans called them black units, though the translation software rendered the term with uncertainty markers. The concept seemed to refer to military formations that existed outside official acknowledgement, units that carried out operations in the shadows between diplomatic relations. Every successful empire in galactic history had developed similar capabilities. The Kralith themselves maintained the Death Seekers, biotechnologically enhanced warriors who carried out missions that couldn't be officially acknowledged. But the human black units appeared to operate at levels of effectiveness that exceeded anything in Kralith experience. Admiral, the intelligence officer continued, there is one additional factor that requires consideration. The human response patterns suggest a level of strategic coordination that extends beyond individual unit actions. Every engagement has been timed to maximize the psychological impact on our forces, while ensuring that surviving units can report what they witnessed. Vex High's forearms moved in the gesture pattern that indicated deep contemplation. He was beginning to understand the true nature of the challenge his empire faced. The humans weren't simply defending their territory with superior technology. They were conducting a carefully orchestrated campaign designed to reshape the Kralith's understanding of human military capabilities. Fear was a weapon, and the humans were wielding it with surgical precision. What is the current status of our expansion operations in human space? He asked. Admiral, 17 of our 24 active expansion fleets have reported contact with human black units. Casualties range from moderate to complete fleet destruction. Fleet commanders are beginning to request additional support before engaging human positions. The intelligence officer's voice carried implications that made Vex High's blood run cold. Some commanders are recommending complete avoidance of human space until we can develop countermeasures. For the first time in over 2 centuries, the Kralith Empire's expansion had encountered effective resistance. Their bioships, which had swept through dozens of species without significant opposition, were being systematically destroyed by human forces that appeared to exist outside normal military doctrine. Worse, the psychological impact was beginning to affect fleet commanders who had never known defeat. The humans were teaching the galaxy that the Kralith Empire was not invincible. What countermeasures are being developed? Vex High demanded. Admiral, our biotechnological research divisions are analyzing captured human weapon fragments and sensor recordings. Initial assessments suggest that human enhancement technology may be based on principles we have not yet mastered. The intelligence officer paused, clearly uncomfortable with the admission. Our scientists estimate that matching human black unit capabilities could require decades of research and development. Decades. Vex High's enhanced mind calculated the implications with crystalline clarity. The Kralith Empire's expansion was built on momentum and the psychological impact of inevitable conquest. If their fleets spent decades avoiding human space while developing countermeasures, other species would begin to question Kralith invincibility. The empire that had conquered 47 species could fragment and collapse if its expansion stalled. But continuing to engage human black units with current capabilities would result in unsustainable casualties. His fleet commanders were already beginning to show signs of what human psychologists would have termed post-traumatic stress. Warriors who had been bred for fearlessness were developing an almost superstitious dread of engagements in human space. The humans had achieved something unprecedented in Kralith military history. They had made the Empire's warriors afraid. Admiral, there is one additional option that requires consideration, the intelligence officer said, his voice carrying the tone that indicated extremely sensitive information. Our Strategic Analysis Division has prepared a preliminary assessment for total commitment against human space. Complete mobilization of our biofleets for simultaneous strikes against all human colonies. Vex High studied the proposal that appeared on the holographic display. The plan called for redirecting the Empire's entire military capability toward crushing human resistance before it could spread to other species. Every bioship, every enhancement laboratory, every strategic resource would be committed to ensuring that the human threat was eliminated permanently. It was a plan born of desperation. The kind of strategic commitment that empires made when they faced extinction. Probability of success? He asked. Admiral, Our models indicate a 73% probability of eliminating organized human resistance within 18 months. However, the resource commitment would leave us vulnerable to uprising among previously conquered species. The intelligence officer's tone carried the weight of implications that neither of them wanted to acknowledge. Additionally, intelligence suggests that human black units may have capabilities we have not yet observed. That last point made Vexhi's exoskeleton shiver with involuntary muscle contractions. Every engagement with human forces had revealed new capabilities, new weapons, new tactical approaches that defied Kralith understanding of warfare. If the humans were deliberately revealing only a fraction of their true capabilities, then any strategic assessment was worthless. The humans might be drawing the Kralith Empire into a trap of cosmic proportions. "What do our xenopsychology specialists say about human strategic thinking?" he asked. The display shifted to show analysis of human cultural patterns and decision-making processes. The information was fragmentary, gathered from diplomatic contacts, and captured human personnel who had revealed little of strategic value. But certain patterns emerged that painted a picture of a species with a fundamentally different approach to warfare than anything the Kralith had encountered. Humans appeared to think in terms of long-term strategic objectives rather than immediate tactical gains. Their military doctrine emphasized adaptability over standardization, individual initiative over centralized control. Most disturbing of all, human strategic planning seemed to account for scenarios that included their own defeat as acceptable outcomes if it served larger objectives. They were a species that had learned to fight wars across generations, accepting short-term losses in service of long-term victory. "Admiral," the intelligence officer continued, "there is one recorded human phrase that our linguists believe may be relevant to understanding their strategic approach. The translation is approximate, but it appears to be, 'The enemy of my enemy is my friend.'" Vexhi felt his enhanced mind grasp the implications immediately. The humans weren't fighting the Kralith Empire in isolation. They were conducting their resistance campaign in full view of every other species in the galaxy, demonstrating that the supposedly invincible biofleets could be defeated. Every human victory sent a message to conquered species that rebellion was possible. The humans were trying to start a galaxy-wide uprising against Kralith rule. "How many species within our empire have shown signs of increased resistance activity since the human engagements began?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer would be worse than his worst fears. "Admiral, 14 species have shown statistically significant increases in resistance activity. 3 have been confirmed to have made contact with human agents. Intelligence estimates that active rebellion could begin within 6 months if current trends continue." The empire was beginning to fracture. 2 centuries of conquest and control were threatened by a species that had learned to fight asymmetric warfare with weapons and tactics that exceeded anything in Kralith experience. The humans had found the empire's weakness: the assumption that superior force guaranteed permanent victory. But Vexhi had not become an admiral by accepting defeat. His species had ruled the galaxy through the application of overwhelming force, and they possessed resources that no single species could match. If the humans wanted to fight a war of extinction, the Kralith Empire would give them exactly that. "Prepare a transmission to the High Command," he ordered. "Request immediate authorization for Protocol Omega against human space." The intelligence officer's coloring shifted to patterns that indicated extreme concern. Protocol Omega was the Empire's ultimate strategic option, reserved for threats that endangered the survival of the Kralith species itself. It called for the deployment of weapons that could sterilize entire star systems, turning habitable planets into lifeless rocks floating in space. "Admiral, Protocol Omega authorization requires consensus among the entire High Command." The implications for galactic stability. "The implications for galactic stability are secondary to the survival of our empire," Vexhi interrupted. "The humans have demonstrated capabilities that threaten everything we have built. If they succeed in triggering a galaxy-wide rebellion, the Kralith Empire will cease to exist." He paused, studying the tactical displays that showed human space as a growing cancer in the Empire's expansion plans. The black units moved through the void like death itself, appearing wherever Kralith forces attempted to establish control, and disappearing after leaving nothing but wreckage in their wake. The humans had chosen to fight a war they couldn't possibly win through conventional means. But they weren't fighting a conventional war. They were fighting for something more dangerous than territory or resources. They were fighting for the idea that the Kralith Empire could be defeated. "Send the request," Vex High commanded, "and prepare the fleet for immediate deployment to human space. If the High Command authorizes Protocol Omega, I want to be in position to implement it within 72 hours." The intelligence officer began transmitting the authorization request that would either save the Kralith Empire or damn it to a war of mutual extinction. Across the galaxy, other species watched and waited, some hoping for human victory, others praying that the Empire's response would not include them in its fury. But in the dark spaces between stars, the black units continued their deadly work, carrying a message that would echo across the cosmos regardless of how the war ended. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. The emergency session of the Terran Federation Council convened in the deepest secure facility beneath Geneva, 3 kilometers underground and shielded by enough exotic matter to hide their discussions from any known surveillance technology. Secretary General Elena Vasquez looked around the circular chamber at faces that carried the weight of a species' survival. The holographic displays surrounding them painted a picture that would have been impossible to believe just 6 months ago. The Kralith Empire was mobilizing for total war against humanity. Intelligence confirms that Admiral Vex High's request for Protocol Omega authorization has been approved by the Kralith High Command, reported Director Chen of the Strategic Intelligence Division. His voice carried the flat tone that intelligence professionals used when delivering news that could end civilizations. Deployment of their planet-killer weapons has begun. We estimate they'll be in position to begin sterilizing human colonies within 96 hours. The silence that followed was broken by Admiral Sarah Mitchell, the Federation Navy's highest-ranking officer, and one of the few people in the room who knew the complete truth about humanity's military capabilities. "How many ships are we looking at?" Initial deployments suggest over 3,000 bioships, including their entire strategic reserve fleet. It's the largest military mobilization in recorded galactic history. Director Chen manipulated the holographic display to show the massive Kralith force as it moved through hyperspace toward human territory. "They're not taking any chances this time." Secretary General Vasquez studied the tactical projections with the expression of someone who had spent decades in diplomatic service learning to find solutions to impossible problems. But some problems couldn't be solved through negotiation or compromise. Some problems required force applied with surgical precision and absolute commitment. "What's the status of our black units?" she asked. The question brought a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. Everyone present held security clearances that exceeded most government officials, but even among this group, the black units represented information that was compartmentalized beyond normal classification levels. They were humanity's greatest secret and its ultimate weapon, the product of research programs that officially didn't exist. "All operational teams have been recalled and are currently receiving enhanced mission packages," replied General Marcus Torres, though everyone in the room knew that his official title as Director of Special Operations barely scratched the surface of his actual responsibilities. "We're implementing Protocol 7. Protocol 7. Even in this room, surrounded by the highest levels of human government, the phrase carried weight that made several council members shift uncomfortably. It was the authorization level that turned the black units from precision instruments of warfare into something approaching forces of nature. Secretary General Vasquez had hoped never to see the day when Protocol 7 became necessary. The enhancement technologies that created black unit personnel pushed the boundaries of what could still be called human. Protocol 7 removed those boundaries entirely, accepting whatever consequences might follow in exchange for capabilities that could match the Kralith's overwhelming numerical advantage. "What are we looking at in terms of operational capacity?" she asked. General Torres accessed classified files that existed in quantum-encrypted storage systems scattered across a dozen star systems. The information that appeared on his personal display was seen by his eyes alone, but his summary would give the Council enough information to understand what humanity was about to unleash upon the galaxy. "We currently have 47 operational black unit personnel distributed across 12 teams. Under Protocol 7, each team will be equipped with Tier 5 enhancement packages and next-generation technology that pushes our manufacturing capabilities to their absolute limits." He paused, choosing his words carefully. The cost per individual in terms of resources and development time exceeds the GDP of most colony worlds. The implications hung in the air like a physical presence. 47 individuals were being prepared to engage a fleet of 3,000 bioships in direct combat, using technology that represented the absolute pinnacle of human scientific achievement. It was either the most audacious military operation in galactic history or the most expensive form of suicide ever attempted. What are their chances? Admiral Mitchell asked. Honestly, unknown. General Torres's admission carried the weight of someone who had spent his entire adult life preparing for this moment while hoping it would never come. The Tier 5 enhancement packages haven't been tested in actual combat conditions. The technology is theoretical at best, experimental at worst. We're essentially asking our best people to become test subjects for weapon systems that could kill them as easily as they kill the enemy. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, the Federation's chief of xenobiological research, leaned forward in her seat. Her work had provided much of the intelligence that made Black Unit operations possible, and her analysis of Kralith biotechnology had revealed weaknesses that conventional military forces could never exploit. The Kralith bioships are living organisms, enhanced and modified but still fundamentally biological, she said. They're vulnerable to attack patterns that target their nervous systems rather than their armor. Our Tier 5 weapons are designed specifically to exploit those vulnerabilities, but the power requirements are enormous. Each shot consumes enough energy to power a small city for a week. The energy requirements alone represented a challenge that pushed human technology to its limits. The weapons that would arm Protocol 7 teams required power sources that barely qualified as portable, exotic matter batteries that existed at the edge of theoretical physics. If the technology failed during combat operations, the teams would be left defenseless against enemies that could destroy planets. What about support operations? Secretary General Vasquez asked. The Black units have always operated with complete autonomy, but this scale of engagement suggests they'll need coordination. General Torres nodded toward a classified section of the chamber, where additional personnel waited for clearance to brief the Council. We're implementing Command Protocol Alpha, direct neural interface between all team leaders and a central coordination AI that can process tactical information faster than biological consciousness allows. The teams will maintain individual initiative while sharing a collective tactical awareness. Command Protocol Alpha represented another leap into technological territory that humanity had never explored. The neural interface technology required to link 47 enhanced individuals with an artificial intelligence capable of processing galactic-scale tactical information pushed the boundaries of what human brains could survive. The volunteers who accepted those interfaces would be changed in ways that couldn't be reversed. Are we sure this is the only option? Asked Counselor Williams, the Federation's senior diplomatic representative. His question carried the weight of someone who had spent decades seeking peaceful solutions to interstellar conflicts. The Kralith have shown themselves to be rational actors. Perhaps, if we demonstrated our defensive capabilities, they might be willing to negotiate. Admiral Mitchell's expression carried the patience of a military professional, explaining tactical realities to civilian leadership. Counselor, our intelligence indicates that the Kralith view this conflict as an existential threat to their empire. They believe that human resistance, if allowed to continue, will trigger rebellions among conquered species that could destroy everything they've built over the past 2 centuries. From their perspective, the choice is between destroying humanity and watching their empire collapse. The brutal mathematics of galactic warfare admitted no middle ground. The Kralith Empire controlled 47 conquered species across hundreds of star systems. Their military force represented the accumulated resources of entire civilizations, all directed toward maintaining control through the application of overwhelming force. Humanity possessed advanced technology and innovative tactics, but their total military capacity was a fraction of what the Empire could deploy. Under normal circumstances, it would have been no contest at all. What makes this situation different? Counselor Williams pressed. What gives us any chance against those odds? Dr. Chen accessed her research files, displaying analysis that had taken her team years to compile. The Kralith Empire is built on biological superiority. Their entire military doctrine assumes that their enhanced warriors and bioships represent the pinnacle of possible military effectiveness. They've never encountered technology that operates on principles they can't understand or counter. The holographic display shifted to show comparative analysis of human and Kralith enhancement technologies. The differences were startling. Kralith enhancements focused on improving existing biological capabilities, making their warriors faster, stronger, and more resilient. Human enhancements took a completely different approach, replacing biological limitations with technological capabilities that transcended organic evolution entirely. Our Black Unit personnel under Protocol 7 will operate at performance levels that the Kralith will interpret as impossible, Dr. Chen continued. Their tactical doctrine has no countermeasures for weapons that fire faster than light, or warriors who can think at computer speeds while moving through space without life support. From their perspective, will appear to be violating the fundamental laws of physics. General Torres added tactical projections that painted a picture of asymmetric warfare, taken to its logical extreme. The psychological impact can't be underestimated. The Kralith have built their empire on the assumption that biological enhancement represents ultimate military superiority. When they encounter technology that makes their best warriors look primitive by comparison, the psychological shock could cascade through their entire command structure. Secretary General Vasquez studied the projections with the expression of someone making decisions that would echo through galactic history. The Protocol 7 deployment would either save humanity from extinction or ensure that their destruction would be remembered as the most spectacular military failure in recorded history. "What do our people say about this?" she asked. "The volunteers who will be carrying out these operations? They understand the stakes," General Torres replied. "Every Black Unit volunteer undergoes psychological evaluation that exceeds anything previously attempted. They know that Protocol 7 enhancement is irreversible, that they'll be changed in ways we can't fully predict. They also know that failure means the extinction of human civilization." The volunteers who would carry out humanity's last desperate gamble represented the finest examples of human military capability. They had already undergone enhancement processes that made them superhuman by any conventional measure. Protocol 7 would take them beyond even those boundaries, into territory that might not qualify as human at all. But they had volunteered anyway, accepting transformation into living weapons because the alternative was watching their species disappear from the galaxy forever. "Authorization timeline?" Secretary General Vasquez asked. "The enhancement process begins immediately upon your authorization. Full deployment requires 72 hours from start to finish." General Torres's voice carried no emotion, but everyone in the room understood the implications. Once the process began, there would be no turning back. 47 human beings would be transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. And if we're wrong, if the technology fails, or the psychological impact isn't what we expect, then humanity will have demonstrated that we chose to fight rather than submit to extinction, Admiral Mitchell answered. "The galaxy will remember that when the Kralith Empire demanded our surrender, we responded by deploying weapons they couldn't understand and tactics they couldn't counter. Other species will know that resistance is possible, even in failure. The operation would serve a strategic purpose. The message that would echo across the galaxy wouldn't be about human military superiority. It would be about human refusal to accept defeat, the willingness to deploy technology that risked everything for the chance to remain free." Secretary General Vasquez looked around the chamber one final time, studying faces that carried the weight of a species' future. The decision before her would either ensure humanity's survival or guarantee that their final act would be remembered for millennia to come. "Authorization granted for Protocol 7 deployment," she said. "God help us all." General Torres activated the quantum-encrypted communication system that would carry his orders to Black Unit teams scattered across human space. The message was simple, consisting of only a few words that would transform 47 individuals into humanity's ultimate weapon. "Protocol 7 is authorized. Begin enhancement procedures immediately." In secure facilities hidden throughout the galaxy, men and women who had already pushed the boundaries of human capability prepared to journey beyond those boundaries entirely. They would emerge from the enhancement process as something unprecedented in galactic history. Warriors who combined human creativity and determination with technology that operated beyond the limits of known physics. The Kralith Empire's bioships were already moving toward human space, carrying weapons capable of sterilizing entire planets. In 96 hours, they would begin the systematic destruction of human civilization, unless something stopped them. 47 enhanced humans would either prove sufficient to that task, or they would die in the attempt while showing the galaxy what humanity looked like when it chose to fight rather than surrender. The black units were going to war, and the universe would never be the same. 72 hours later, Captain Sarah Chen opened her eyes in an enhancement chamber that had become her chrysalis. The woman who emerged bore only superficial resemblance to the one who had entered. Her enhanced nervous system processed information at quantum speeds. Her reinforced skeleton could withstand pressures that would crush starship hulls, and her weapons were integrated directly into her cellular structure at the molecular level. She was no longer entirely human, but she was exactly what humanity needed to survive. Protocol 7 enhancement complete. She reported through neural interfaces that connected her consciousness directly to her team members and the Central Coordination AI. Her voice carried harmonic frequencies that resonated through dimensions beyond normal space. Black units are operational. Across the galaxy, the Kralith fleet moved inexorably toward human space, confident in their overwhelming advantage. They had never encountered an enemy that could match their biological superiority, and they expected this engagement to follow the same pattern as their previous 47 conquests. They were about to discover that humanity had stopped playing by the rules that governed conventional warfare. The final battle for human survival was about to begin, and it would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed.